Okay, Steve-O, getting live to go on air. And it looks like we're starting now. So hopefully, welcome one and all, whoever's joining us today. Okay, Steve-O, live to go on air. Whoa,
there we go. Sorry about that. It does. I can't mute the damn thing until it starts playing, and then I'm scrambling around. It was funny. I saw somebody had talked about a Kickstarter project for a new big red button that was called the End Zoom Meeting button. So because at the end of all these Zoom meetings, everybody's like, okay, goodbye, and then you're trying to fumble around trying to find where's the leave meeting button. So it's like this big red button, End Zoom Meeting. I love it.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Oh, look at that. How do I spell welcome? WLXOME.
That's about how you would spell it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a new language. New language.
Well,
hello everybody. Thanks for joining us today. It was interesting. Last week's session seemed to have got a bit of attention and insight, gave us some clarity and a bit of purpose around what we're doing. And of course, with this whole virus going around that we're dealing with now more than ever, we are wondering whether all events are going to go virtual in some form. It was interesting. I was chatting with my wife the other day. She works for Google, and she was saying to me, is this going to be the new norm? Do how we've had conferences in the past, perhaps they won't be run like that for a good period of time. And it affects right down to user groups, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You and I have said that we don't really go to these conferences for the content, because we get the content through other means. We have the content, so we go primarily for the interaction, with either other customers, partners, MVPs, and Microsoft people. And okay, to be honest, it's basically to go drinking, but still. If you take all that out, which you don't have at a virtual conference, all that's left is the content, which we probably already would have seen. So I don't know what that means for us. A bunch of PGIs probably, and that's.
Can you just explain what PGI is? Because not everyone will know that.
It's a PGI is a product group interaction. It basically is. I know they do it for MVPs. They may do it for other groups of insiders or something, where some product group wants some interaction with the community out there.
Mm-hmm.
They do it with pilot groups and stuff like that, where they'll get on and talk for an hour just candidly about something that they're working on. It may still be pretty early days of something that they're sketching out to just get some feedback. But as a result, since we get so many of these, by the time the thing is actually launched and everybody's told about it, we kind of already beat it to death. So it's not that exciting for us going to these events for the sessions, So I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know how I feel about the virtual conferences.
Okay, so here's the thing. I've been hit up twice this week from two different countries, people in different countries, around how do we run user groups going forward, where it's more and more likely that people are just not going to want to come out and interact in a user group scenario. Do we just can user groups for the foreseeable future until some such time? And for me, I'm not a big fan of doing that, because people get so much sense of community inside a user group. So this is, what I've found, and I'm basing it on lessons learned of running the 90-day mentoring challenge. This time when I ran the 90-day mentoring challenge, something totally different happened. I did different than the last 2 years, in that I asked everybody to turn on their video cameras,
right,
and use chat. Now, for me presenting, I minimized chat so I couldn't see it, and I minimized the cameras so I couldn't see that. So I couldn't see that interaction, right? So it wasn't for me as the presenter, but guess what happened? The chat just blew up like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Because people could see people interacting, if you like, based on their facial expressions with my whatever I was, expounding on.
Right.
And then they would put their opinion or their links or their resources in the chat window. And honestly, I was in a 1 hour session getting over 300 comments in a 1 hour session.
Yeah. And they're mostly talking back and forth to each other.
So they're talking, backwards and forwards to each other using chat.
Yeah.
But with the facial expression, right? So I can see, I'm going to make a joke about what you said.
Right.
And having the camera on, the face on, but not the voice of each of those individuals, because everyone was muted apart from me speaking, just had a massive impactful effect. So that was one thing that I did that, man, I'll never not do it that way again, because I just could not believe that interaction that went on.
Interesting.
Because when I go to Q&A, I'd flick up and I'd have a whole screen full of 40 odd cameras, right? Because all their faces on.
Yeah.
And you see they've had this whole banter around, whether it's they're talking about each other's living rooms or lying on the couch or the dog coming into their frame while they're listening to the session. So I couldn't believe that. The second thing I did was run accountability partners. So I basically had a list of everybody, and you were accountable to the person above you in the list and accountable for the person below you in the list. And the whole reason I just didn't have it, pair up is that, sometimes if you're paired up, listen, you say you did this, I say I did that, we're all sweet, right?
Yeah,
and I
right.
wanted to make sure the accountability really worked. Once again, incredibly powerful, because when we weren't online, people interacted with each other through whatever channel they chose, to make sure that connection was happening. Yeah, Scott was on, thanks Scott, he was on those sessions. So what's my advice to user groups around the world right now? I would go and plug in and go virtual. I would, use some video conference software. I personally have found most effective for me was to use Zoom. And the big issue is that because you're not dealing with permission issues that come with using Teams, right? Teams can have some real bullshit issues when it comes to bringing in a crowd of people. So Zoom works for me, and I've been using Zoom for a couple of years now. I have the minimum paid plan for whatever it is, and that allows me to do all my customer interaction, and it just works. It just works. Yeah. Even like this session here, we've specified to part of the facility here, just on that minimum plan, was to live stream it to YouTube. It allows us to do that. That's what's amazing. But for a user group, I would run everything and have everybody with the cameras on, but the presenter. So you need somebody kind of facilitating the group and bringing the presenter in, on and off. They can share their desktop. You can record it. Everybody can jump and have chat. So they can go to Q&A. Let's say the presenter spoke for 15 minutes. They can have a Q&A session at the end of 15 minutes for 5 minutes on that topic. Have somebody ask the presenter all the questions rather than the presenter try to read through those. I never find that works that well. The presenter, whoever's running the event, highlights the key questions that the audience has asked. They address them, bang, you're on to your next presenter. I think this could be a brand new model that really also opens up inclusiveness. So I've been, Patty is a guy who's going to come on a podcast with me soon. And in fact, he's often on this session here. And one of the things that Patty and I have been talking about is that there's a lot of single parents or parents that have to be home and can't attend a user group for whatever reason. Life, the hand that they've been dealt requires them to be home, but they would love to be able to go in their office or jump on their computer and join a live session. But the user group is not a global one. It's still in their own area. So let's say, just because we're talking about Glasgow as an example in Scotland, all the people in the user group would be physically in the Glasgow region. So it is the local crew, but it's all those people that couldn't actually get out in the evenings and go to an actual user group that way. What they could do is still have that banter. They are connected based on geography, but they can't physically meet together. This would allow it to address it. It's funny that over I recorded a podcast with Patty last week. I got these 2 questions this week around it. And I'm like, hang on a second. This could be the new way of doing user groups for the foreseeable future until such times as the virus has been cleaned up and perhaps that's not the issue anymore. Or it could be a hybrid approach that we carry on with into the future.
It eliminates several things, right? I mean, it eliminates the challenge of speakers, because even if it's an event in Glasgow, they still have speakers from anywhere, time zones permitting, that want to get interesting speakers instead of being limited to whoever's nearby. Yeah, so that's always been a huge issue for these user groups is getting enough knowledgeable speakers to talk about topics and then having to cover their costs, or maybe having to go get sponsors for no other reason than to help offset some of the cost of getting people to stand in front of a group.
Yeah.
Where, in virtual, there's literally no cost to do that.
No pizza costs, no drink costs, no
Yeah.
transportation for speakers or anything like that. And your speaker pool, boom, explodes, right? Like what I found last year, I presented to Perth user group when I was in Canada, and I presented to Adelaide user group when I was in New Zealand. Both those and I've been asked to do one in Nigeria later in the year. Oh, and I did one into India. That was the other one. And I was presenting at these user groups on camera, full desktop, everything. The room was full of people, because I had them put the camera around to the room. I even did a full interactive session where I got them to get, butcher's paper on the wall and do a mind map and everything around what I was talking about. That all happened. And yet I was thousands and thousands of miles away in every situation. Yet I had full interaction, full learning, good feedback. And I just think, hey, you do open up a lot of opportunities. I mean, Todd Mercer's saying there that the CDNUG has been doing virtual now for years.
Yeah.
As a model. And
that's because it's too damn cold up there to get out.
In Canada.
It'll be interesting to see how much of this is, you remember the bird flu, you remember SARS, you remember we have these virus scares every couple of years, it seems like, and everybody panics. And then eventually whatever happens, then it goes away. They figure out the vaccines, they figure out how to contain it, it goes away. And I have every expectation this one will also go away, just like all of the rest. And then we'll all be looking at, well, shit, I haven't seen my buddy in a long time to go grab a beer, because that's not part of a virtual event. There's no, let's go grab a beer, which is a big part of the social aspect of these functions and these events.
Correct.
The side conversations in the hallways, how do they exist in a virtual world? I mean, you're basically talking to, or you're listening to a presenter, and when he's done, the thing goes off. Where's the side conversations? Where's that sort of stuff?
Totally.
Occur, and that's a big part of those things. Is what do you think about it? Because there's lots of people that somebody gets up and pitches or talks about something, people are asking questions, but then there's none of this candid, what'd you think about that guy's pitch? You think he's full of shit, or you think that's important, or there's none of that, no opportunity for any of that. So we're all going to have to kind of absorb it in our own vacuum.
Happens in chat. It happens in other forums,
Yeah.
That it hasn't, because at the end of the day, right, we're evolving slightly in business for this new landscape that we're dealing in that has no obvious end date. Now, I'm all for as soon as it's over and we know that we're got, no fly bans on us or anything. Shit, I'll be back at the next event. No worries, no problem there.
I think it's all going to snap back. But each time the virtual events get better. I'm not a big fan. I mean, I can't sit through the launch events.
Because they're all pre-canned. They're not live.
They're live on the Q&A, but the content
but it's
is
fabricated Q&A, right? You haven't got a single one of those presenters on that Q&A.
Oh,
who's on the Q&A? A whole bunch of voluntary MVPs or paid MVPs jump on and comment about their skew of what their interpretation. It's not really fact.
And since it's recorded, you can watch it tomorrow. You watch it. There's no urgency to watch it. And that seems to be part of the, I think, a challenge with any of these virtual events is everybody feels like, well, this is recorded. If I'm not going to sit there, I'll still be able to see it. It's almost like in order for them to succeed, it would have to be, these are not being recorded. If you want this content, you got to be online now or you're not going to get it to really drive that attendance.
But the thing is, I don't know that you even need to drive the attendance, as in if people get fed, so to speak, they get what they're going for, they will attend, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people can't attend purely because other shit is going down. For me, if I know it's a pre-recorded content, I don't attend because I want to watch it or listen to it at 2 times the speed, right?
Yeah.
Still get the same stuff, but get rid of all the shit that's irrelevant.
Well, and I also, again, same reason. I've never seen a virtual launch event where they told me anything we didn't already know.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's
Did you get your invite last week from James Phillips
for which
for the virtual launch event?
I think I've got him going right in my junk mail. I'll have to. I never get anything from James that isn't junk mail, so I'll have to take a look at that.
Classic. Obviously, we've got 7 people showing on my view on this time. The obviously US time zone bump around that must have affected the thing for a few people.
Well, you know, we had over here in US time change last Sunday night, and I'm finding out that apparently we have to win at everything, including being the first to change the time zone every year, just to screw everything up. So yeah, that's through this
till the end of the month. And I think the UK has just gone through a change. They're about to go through a change, the UK, I think, but there's not for a couple of weeks yet. Yeah.
So since this was created, this Zoom meeting was created, and all this stuff was created in New Zealand, in the New Zealand time zone. It didn't change for you, but all of a sudden I looked at my clock and it's like, oh, this thing's at 5 o'clock today. So we probably lost a few folks because of the.
So what are you saying? We should have done it at 9?
Well, it's 5 o'clock Eastern. We typically do it at 4 Eastern. I don't know what a good time is. I'm curious. I mean, obviously the people.
I could have done it from 9 today, as in my side, right? Because it's 10 o'clock still, it's mid-morning for me now.
Well, do you think most of our people that are joining us are US based, or at least, you know, so I don't, it just would have messed up somebody else. So
my viewer base is in all the stats from my podcasts, everything is massively US skewed.
Yeah.
Then followed by Europe, then followed by Australia.
Yeah. Well, we know that we still get most of the action on these shows is in the replays because.
But look at that. We got is this our first Icelander to join us on the show?
Ilugi?
I love Iceland. Been there twice. Think it's an amazing country. And who got to see the Northern Lights in all its glory? I stayed up all night one night, just in a car driving, you know, taking photos of the Northern Lights. Mate, that's a sick country. Totally epic.
Very cool.
I want to go back and dive today. Hey?
We're going to talk about anything topical today?
Oh, yeah. Well, the user groups is very topical.
Well, true. Yeah. And I had heard a rumor that Microsoft, you know, Microsoft's locking everything down at headquarters. You know, no non-essential personnel are supposed to be coming into the office. I did think it was interesting how the categories of essential were obviously people involved in security and keeping the systems up and running, as well as sales. If you're in the sales team at Microsoft, you got to get your ass in the office if that's where you work from, because that's not stopping because of no damn virus. But they're also starting to tighten up on facilities. I'd heard rumor that which could, you know, go right into your user group things. I know a lot of those sorts of events happening at various Microsoft offices around. It's been something they've been able to offer up that I'm hearing they're kind of locking that stuff down for a while. So a lot of these events may not have a home for their upcoming event.
So here we go. I've just jumped into 365portal.org, which is where the 365 Saturdays events are run from. Yeah. The next upcoming event is in 9 days, which is in Seattle.
Yeah. So that was the one that was going to be right after MVP Summit, right?
It's still happening in 9 days, 21 hours, and 41 minutes.
Well, I don't know if it's still happening. It's just still on that website, which has been notoriously behind.
Hang on. I'm reading. Here it is. 365 Saturday is an online-only event. Please do not travel to Seattle. You will be able to attend the event remotely. More details to be shared shortly.
There you go. Another one going virtual.
Here's another one. Dynamics 365 Monterey, 26th of March. That's down in Mexico, right? You know, 18th of April, 25th of April, 16th of May. I think a lot of these events are not going to be running in person. You know, Spain just, my country just put a full travel warning out against Spain. So,
yeah. It's, I think a lot of people are waiting to the last minute, and when it's just obvious that, okay, we're going to have to switch to, you know, because who knows when this thing goes away, right? You don't want to cancel your in-person event and then have all clear sign come from all the governments, and you just went and canceled everything. So they're waiting to the last minute to do it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I tell you what, I'm not booking any flights so now.
No, I already lost, you know, quite a bit on some flying. I know you lost significantly more than me
Two grand now. I'm in the toilet. $2,000 that the airlines won't refund and or insurance won't refund.
Yeah.
You know, and that's crazy to think that that, you know, insurance policies just don't cover any of that. So therefore, it would be totally ignorant to now go out, book flights at a time like this. Like even what is it? The 365, Extreme 365 and Dynamic Community event, which I think they pushed to May, was it, in Barcelona?
Yeah. Might not have pushed that far enough.
These are already going. The next 3 months are nothing's happening. Like,
yeah. They might not have pushed that far enough.
I see.
We heard as MBAS. What have we heard about MBAS? Is that still hanging on to see what happens?
MBAS has a warning up on their website, doesn't it, saying we can't confirm this event will be running or something?
Yeah, something about too early to tell, I guess. All right, we screwed up Mr. Torfeson's first name, or I did, and I probably just screwed up his last name. But sorry about that. I don't know how we could actually get the proper pronunciation of your name right now. I'd love to, but we did try.
Very good. Just this is what MBAS says. In light of the global health concerns due to novel coronavirus or COVID-19, Microsoft is monitoring public health guidance in relationship to this event. We'll continue to monitor and make any necessary changes. That was March the 2nd. They put that up.
Yeah, so they're continuing to monitor.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
so what they're doing, it's the first time, you know, that we're seeing clearly on an upcoming event, almost, yeah, what I'm reading of this, don't rush out and book your flights.
Hey, think about some of the big events like Build and Inspire. I mean, Inspire is July. I mean, that's only July. That's not that far out. I mean, some of these big events, wow. They really, and those are bringing in people, well, most of these are bringing in people from all over the world. So kind of the whole world has to be clear, you know. It's going to be an interesting little time here, but I do believe this too shall pass. Yes,
this too shall pass. Tell us, you know, one of the things that came up on a call with a customer this week is the whole area of multiplexing. and
here's what multiplexing is.
Yeah, what is it? What is the interpretation of it?
So multiplexing is going to be the next team member license.
Right.
What I mean by that is it is a concept of rules that do not have any technical enforcement.
Yeah.
So just like the team member license was a concept of privileges, limited privileges that didn't have any technical enforcement, which then required, of course, everybody just blew that all up, requiring Microsoft ultimately to finally come up with technical enforcement and cause massive problems for tons of customers. Multiplexing is going to be the next one. So multiplexing, for anybody that doesn't know, and I think we did talk about this briefly in the last episode. Maybe we didn't, but it seemed to recall saying this
more in the last week or so. I'm finding.
Yeah, it's more or less that any way data gets into, let's take CDS for example, from a user in your organization.
Yep.
Indirectly. And we have lots of customers saying, hey, you know, can I get around the restricted entity by, for example, creating my own custom entity and just having it write, you know, with a workflow into the restricted one? That's clearly multiplexing. Well, how about if I have a form or do a bunch of forms, Microsoft Forms for like creating leads and creating opportunities, and let my sales team use that. And then with Power Automate, push those records to CDS. That's multiplexing. I mean, the whole concept is it don't matter how the data gets in CDS, how many hoops, jumps, tunnels, back alleyways you tried to sneak it in there. If the original source of that data is one of your damn users, you need a license.
No, more than that. Let me read this to you. This is from the latest licensing guide. I'll read you 2 sentences from this and make it very clear. Mm-hmm. Multiplexing refers to the use of hardware or software that a customer uses to pull connections, reroute information, or reduce the number of devices or users that directly access or use the CDS service. multiplexing does not reduce, and they've screamed the word not,
Right.
reduce the number of software licenses of any type required to access the CDS service. Any user or device that accesses the CDS service, whether directly or indirectly, must properly be licensed. Now, notice that's device or user. So in other words, could I create a connector? That's a device type connection, right? Rather than a user, that's multiplexing.
So this will be one of those things that right now, there's nothing preventing you today from going out and creating a Microsoft form and using Power Automate to create leads from anybody filling in this form. Microsoft has no way to know whether the person filling in that form is just some random person out there or one of your employees.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to find a bunch of people doing exactly that, having their employees submit anonymous forms or unauthenticated forms to get data in there. It's the same issue in a way with team member, where you're going to have companies and you're going to have people that are say, okay, this platform works for us economically because we're able to do this over here on this side. It doesn't work if we follow the rules. It's the same reason team member took off, because the only way it would financially work was if they violated the rules of team member. Yeah. So the only way a lot of these scenarios are going to work is if they just violate the rules of multiplexing. Yeah. And it's such time as what? Microsoft, I don't know how they lock that down. I mean, I don't know how you lock down anonymous access of who that is, but.
So let me just, put it into real language for me. If we took, for example, George Dominski's Dynamics to WordPress connector.
Yep.
Is that multiplexing?
Sure. Well, you're just creating, it's just surfacing a public forum and people are filling out and submitting data in. You know what else is potentially multiplexing?
What?
Think about the Salesforce connector. We have a connector in there for Salesforce. So I've got 10,000 of my employees are using Salesforce. And I've got 20 people over here on CDS because I'm introducing it to the company. We'll see where it goes. We're a big Salesforce shop. Oh, look, here's a Salesforce connector. I can connect Salesforce to my common data service, and I can pass some data back and forth. Well, that data is coming from my 10,000 Salesforce users, which are all employees of the company.
Yeah.
To push that data into that CDS, do I need to have every one of those people now licensed? According to this, you do.
Yeah.
According to this, you do. Now, here's the funny question.
Multiplexing, it's not a new concept, because I remember back in
multiplexing
2011 days, multiplexing has been around for some time.
Yeah.
But what I think the complication has come about is this ability for, Microsoft has 300 plus connectors themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
All designed to bring data in and out of the system.
From other systems that you may very well have employees that are using those other systems.
Correct.
Other completely different systems out there that are somehow now going to put data in. So, but here's the question. Here's the fuzzy one in my mind. They must be properly licensed.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the proper license? Is the proper license a PowerApps license? Is it a Flow license? Is it what is the proper license that gets past the multiplexing? And there's another area where Microsoft talks about this per flow, right? You've heard about that one. You can have flow licensing for users, or you can have a per flow license, which is just, I'm going to license this individual flow. It's not going to run in the context of any particular user. It's just a flow that runs in my environment, and I'm paying a license for that flow.
Yeah.
One of the things it says in the per flow licensing is that that's a way to get to not have to license all of your users for some of these activities. Okay, well, that directly contradicts what you just read and what's up at the top of the page.
Yeah.
So we kind of need some guidance on that. Let me see if I can scroll to that.
I personally think they just need to remove the whole multiplexing section from the licensing guide.
That would, multiplexing, like I said, it's been around forever, and it's always been a massive point of violation for companies, forever. I think the problem that Microsoft would have is if everybody was actually forced to wake up one day and live to the letter of all of the terms of all the agreements, everybody would drop the product because nobody could afford it.
Yeah.
The only way the product is even affordable by people is because they're not following all the detailed rules. Because if they did, you know.
Yeah, I always remember years ago speaking to somebody at Microsoft, and they said to me something very interesting about clarification of what licensing meant, like interpreting licensing. And they said, and this was the head at that time, he was the most senior person in one of the geographies within Microsoft. And he said, listen, if you ask me the question, I'll have to find you the factual answer.
Yeah, right. Yep.
He said,
So
if you don't ask me the question, I don't have to find the factual answer or the legal answer, and none of us are the wiser. And
hey, that's how we got gays in the military over here in the U.S., right? Don't ask, don't tell.
Oh, I have no idea where you're going with that.
Oh no, way back when that was, there was a policy in the U.S. that if you were gay, you couldn't be in the military.
Ah,
obviously there were many gay people in the military. They were all just kind of hiding it, but to not be like rooted out and thrown out of the military. I think it was Clinton actually introduced a "don't ask, don't tell" policy. So in other words, at the time, you're still not allowed to be gay in the military, but no one's going to ask you, and you don't have to tell anyone, and we're just going to, turn a blind eye. So it's kind of what happens with multiplexing, I think, is the don't ask, don't tell. But here, listen to this one. So the Power Automate per business process plan. That's the one I was just talking about.
Power Automate per business process plan. Okay. Yep.
So this is licensed by flow for a single flow, right? So we just talked about, you've got your Microsoft form, and it's triggering a single flow to shove data into CDS. This allows customers to implement critical business processes with the capacity that serves teams, departments, or the entire organization without individually licensing each end user that triggers the licensed flow. Okay, that sounds to me like that goes directly. It goes on to say it's great for departmental scenarios where typically one power user sets up a flow and shares the same with the broader group. And this plan alleviates the need to license each end user that knowingly or unknowingly triggers execution of the licensed flow. So doesn't that sound like that directly contradicts the multiplexing to you?
Yeah, it totally does.
So this is where there's actually a conversation. Well, I've initiated the conversation, and some other folks are jumping in with some of the Microsoft teams, and they seem to be hiding from it a little bit. We've been told, oh yes, no, we'll definitely get some clarity on that. And all they had to do was say, we'll get some clarity. And suddenly a whole bunch of other folks, our folks, jumped in and said, yeah, we all need clarity on that. And I think so many people wanted clarity. We ran them back into the shelter. They're all hiding again. So we'll see what happens with that one. But that's this whole multiplexing thing.
It's a very sticky area.
Multiplexing was a concept that came up before software operated the way it does today, right? I mean, that was when you had you had software that was installed on your desktop, right? You had server licenses. You had specific individual devices that you would use, and it was a little different now in the world we're in today, where it's all these flows and all these cloud services and connectors. And what does this do for the whole damn connector marketplace? We're going to have to, I don't know what the hell it does. I don't know. This is where we need some clarity.
Yep. And honestly, I find there's so many reasons why we need to have these in-person events with Microsoft, because it's only as you get these kind of unrecorded, sessions that people are kind of not being held, their word held against them, so to speak, that you can have some of these discussions.
These PGIs we talked briefly about earlier, these are usually not as big. It's a Microsoft person, may not even be that senior a person, who's not even that comfortable speaking to people, but he's talking to a group of maybe 30 or 40 of us. Yeah. And, we'll open up the live talk, and we'll just talk. We'll ask questions and drill them until we get the answers. If I was limited to only being able to, how would I even ask these multiplexing questions through chat? at any
Yeah.
kind of a way to get to a result. Too easy to ignore the chat for one thing, not easy to ignore me when I'm talking to you. And the follow-up is all lost because, you're going to have, look at this stuff that's going to be coming up potentially for Summit, right? With 500 people on a Teams call. I mean, there's not going to be any talking. It's going to be a bunch of chat, and chat is the easiest thing for someone to avoid a sticky topic. Just act like they didn't see it.
Yep.
Because there'll be plenty of other chats coming in there, and it's like it's too much of a free for all.
Yeah. And it disappears, as in, like, the more that chat stream runs, like chat, I feel at these type of things is only valid for the actual point in time that it's happening.
Well, you know what? Frankly, even the in-person things. I mean, how many times have we sat at one of these in-person presentations? We got some Microsoft PM up there telling us about a bunch of stuff, and we're asking him about this, that, and any other. He says, "You know what? That's a good idea. I'm definitely going to make a note of that." But he didn't make a fucking note of that. I didn't see him make a note of that. Did you see him make a note of that? I don't see anybody make a fucking note of that. We never heard it again. There's no note of that. It's this idea that's a great idea. I'm going to immediately forget that idea right now, and we're never going to implement it.
I mean, and that's the whole thing, right? How do you build trust with people when you say that type of thing? In consulting, we have that all the time, right?
Back in PAC, they used to have a stenographer. Now, PAC was a lot smaller. PAC was maybe 20 of us total in the room. And so it was enough for a stenographer to kind of keep up with, and their job, the stenographer's job, was just to track the kinds of questions and feedback that was coming from us to that person. So at least you knew it was being recorded. But most of these other things, how many times we sit in front of these folks talking, they're saying, "That's great. I'm going to make a note of that." And we're thinking, nobody making any notes of any of this stuff.
Yeah. No, very valid. Very valid.
Yeah. At least in a virtual thing, we've got it recorded, right?
Yeah. If it's recorded, it's quite different. Tell me about one of the posts I read of yours this week was around potholes.
Yeah.
Did you call it the Power Platform potholes? Was it?
Yeah. You mentioned that post and I forgot it, so I got to go pop that back up and see what the hell I was talking about here.
A lot of people commented on the bottom. I noticed a lot of feedback you had in the comments there.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges we're still in this mode where, I mean, I'm talking to customers. We're talking to large customers that are, we're well down the path with PowerApps.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What do you mean by that? Oh, we built a bunch of Canvas apps on top of SharePoint lists. Yeah. Okay. And what else have you done in PowerApps? Is there more? I thought that was it. We're using PowerApps. Yep, we're using it fully. We built a bunch of these things.
Yeah.
No concept of CDS at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what that post was about, because like I told you, I tend to write these things and then forget about them.
No, do you have that post up in front of you?
Yeah, I do now.
But
there's just a lot of confusion about this restricted entities challenge, and we still don't have
restricted entities. That was the big kicker in it.
Yeah. When did I write that? I wrote that a month ago, and here we are a month later, still no news on that. And it had been September of last year that it was announced that we were going to see some more restricted entities.
Yep.
Still crickets.
But I think one of the comments that one of the punters made there in what they've written was, isn't the whole idea of the common data model meant to be an open model? And therefore, with that schema in place, you should be able to put data into that table.
Sure, if you want to pay for the license.
We don't want the lot. No, because that's the thing is that breaks the open nature of the Common Data Initiative. What's the whole thing about the Common Data or the Open Data Initiative? Open stands for open, not licensed. Open.
Yeah, but what good is it if you don't have a CDS to install it on? So the CDS has to have a license, right? So the data model is useless without a licensed account to install it upon. So I'm sure they could take, I mean, I'm playing the devil's advocate. I had somebody else talking about the fact that with his team members now, that one of the rights of team member is read access to everything in the system, but the new team member apps are only going to allow 15 entities. And doesn't that fly in the face of being able to see anything I want versus only being able to see 15 things? And my response was, well, you picked the 15 things, right? I mean, so you can still see everything. You just can't see it all at once. You can see 15 of them. If you want to see some other thing, well, you'll have to go get rid of some and add those. But you could technically, you can see every single thing in that instance to read if that's what you put in your app. In a way, Microsoft could say, no, you've got read access to everything. You can go put any one of those things in your app. We're not keeping you from reading any of them. You just can't read them all at once. You just can't read more than 15 at a time. So we're going to see some of that language parsing, I think, in a lot of these things. Just like we were talking about licensing, properly licensed. What does that mean? Does grabbing that per flow license solve that multiplexing issue of 1,000 of my salespeople creating a lead through a Microsoft form? Does that single app flow or single flow license, does that solve that? I mean, part of their description down there, what that flow license does, it sounds like it does, but not up at the top.
Yeah.
So we're
interesting.
We're going to need some clarity, because this is the kind of stuff that makes customers nervous. Thank God most customers don't listen to us or any of us or any of this stuff or look at any of this stuff. Most of them are listening to some partner who doesn't really know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, who's making it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because if they were actually listening to people that knew what they were talking about, they might get a little nervous.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, right, a lot of partners are never really focused on the license part of the transaction. There used to be back in the day, because you could make some amazing cash off the side, right, of selling licenses. But now, today, it's negligible, right? As in, I think between the big money is services. If I look at my deals, if I was doing $1 million project, there'd be, $990,000 worth of services in it, $10,000 worth of licenses.
I think that between them gradually reducing the incentives that are paid on licensing, because, they call it an incentive. It was always called an incentive, which to me always meant it was temporary. It's always been temporary. We're paying you this, and that means that they can monkey around with it, reduce it, which they do.
Yep.
And then these lower cost licenses that have come out, and then adding cost to be able to sell directly the licenses. Of course, you get even less margin when you're selling through a distributor. If you're going to try and go direct, now you've got other things you need to do in order to be able to. You have cost to be direct. So where the margins there's not a lot of margin in there. So, and then you got to deal with that customer calling every month saying, hey, I need to add 1, I need to remove 2, I need to add 3, I need to cancel 4. Yeah, that's just constant stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, not worth it in my mind, unless you're in a high scale, really high scale, where those small margins can actually add up to something. It's a problem.
Yeah. I noticed, just not that I'm stalking you or anything, but also on your website, you've got the stock ticker on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And look at that. Everything's redlining.
Who's winning today? Yeah. I only ever look at that.
I was just like, all of them were red. That was what blew me away. All the tech companies are all projecting massive losses.
It's funny because it's always been mixed. Every time I've ever looked at the site, maybe Microsoft was up, Salesforce down, Google's, there's always been mixed, but yeah, right now it's pretty even across the board that they're all screwed.
Everybody's redlining.
Not good.
Massively. So before we jump on this call, we're discussing whether you're seeing the impact in your business. Do you expect you will?
I don't know. We haven't seen any impact yet, but it could just be, delayed. I mean, we're not targeting a particular industry that is going to be impacted specifically. We don't have all our eggs in like a particular industry basket that would be one of those industries. I don't even know which one. I guess certainly the travel industry right now is probably going to have some problems. I would have to think.
Any travel, tourism, like cruise ships, airlines,
theme parks,
Airbnbs, hotels that have just totally been vacated, any type of touristic type activity, gone.
Yeah, yeah, and in Florida here, there's a lot of tourist activity. We certainly have a bunch of theme parks that I've got to think are probably having some challenges. I mean, I don't know that I'd want to be heading over to theme park.
In one of the ports in New Zealand that has had a massive cruise ship pull in that is staying there indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
Well, they got no future date to move it.
Are the people on it?
No.
Oh, they just don't need it. They just don't need it right now.
There's nowhere to send it to. There's nowhere to, you can get cruises now for $700 for like 15 days.
I'll bet. And you can almost have the boat to yourself.
Who wants to take that risk?
So I saw even on our local news last night, because there's a cruise port here, actually not very far from me, at 4:00 every day when they go to pull away from the berths and they're blowing the horns. I could hear them. Sometimes I have to shut the door because I could hear them. They've still been going. And there was some segment on the news about they were interviewing people on their way to their cruise ships to go on their cruise, saying, "Aren't you worried?" And everybody's like, "Hey, we planned this vacation 6 months ago. I spent the money. There's no way we're not going." But talking about how, you pretty much have free reign on a cruise boat now. Yeah, they're not going to be crowded and they're going to be cheap.
Extremely cheap.
Yeah, flying's the same thing. I mean, I wasn't able to get out of, I'm not going to Barcelona now, obviously. I'm not going to Seattle now, obviously, when up till a few days ago, was still planning to go there. But I still have to go to Hawaii for daughter's wedding. That's not moving. So I'm going to have to sit in a metal tube full of people for a extended period of time from Tampa all the way to Hawaii and back.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous about that, A little nervous.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Definitely nuts. Any questions on the chat there, folks? Keen to get your input and insights into the current world events and or how this is impacting you in your daily jobs, careers, that type of thing. Or is there any other topic that you want us to pull apart, like multiplexing and or licenses?
I wouldn't say we pulled that apart. I'd say we just kind of threw that one up in the air and mushed it a little bit,
With multiplexing.
More to come on multiplexing.
It's multiplexing and that what are the entity restricted entities?
Yep.
Those are two because they actually are interconnected in a way I feel as well.
I agree, and they're both unanswered. And so we need answers. We need answers to that pretty quick. BizApp Summit, Scott, Mark was looking at their site earlier and it said TBD, they're keeping an eye on it. I can't imagine that, when is that, June or July? Or the beginning of July?
June, isn't it?
June.
Hang on. I'll just click on the
I can see why they wouldn't want to pull the plug on it just yet. Because I'll tell you what, once we all get the all clear on the virus, the next in-person event after that is going to be slammed.
Oh, BizApp is 6th to the 7th of May.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough.
May, it's 2 months away.
I don't think they would get a big enough all clear globally to have that one. But whoever has the first real live event, maybe it's going to be Barcelona. I don't know. Who knows? Again, Barcelona back on the counter whenever that is.
Yeah, it'll be summertime, right? It'll be summertime as well.
Yeah, but still,
I don't know, man.
A lot of people will be itching to get out of the damn office, ready for an event.
Yeah. But if it, I reckon it ain't gonna happen.
Oh, wait a minute. Scott says he's scheduled to go and he's already has everything planned. Mark, let's call Microsoft and let them know that they really can't because Scott has already made plans. They're going to have to.
I just said that I'd lost $2,000 because my plan's not working out.
Yeah, exactly.
Paid it. Gone.
Sorry, Scott, I don't think anybody gives a shit. That's a risk you take right now. And
that's the unfortunate thing, right?
well, where this really, right now, every flight that I'm booking, or I'm not really booking any right at the moment other than Hawaii, but, I'm looking at those refundable fares,
Yeah,
fully
gotta be.
refundable. But even those are crazy. I was looking at, because I had to reroute my travel a little bit. So my travel to Hawaii is a one-way ticket, $261 US to get to Hawaii from Tampa, which is, I've never seen it that cheap.
Wow.
But that's non-refundable. If I want a fully refundable ticket, it's $750. Same ticket,
Yeah.
fully non-refundable or fully refundable.
They're
So
hedging.
I either am going to pay 3 times what I should, or I'll only lose a third what I could. That's it's kind of a devil's bargain right there. What choice you take.
When you started saying that, I was like, shit, that's all I'll do. I'll go and buy Barcelona tickets, but I'll get them as refundable. But yeah, they're probably like $6,000.
Oh yeah, they're always way more money. Always way more money. So
that is ridiculous.
Well, and you and I just recently got screwed on Airbnb too. Our brilliant Airbnb strategy, which has been working so well up to now.
The last couple of years, right? It's been working great, but now it's dead.
Well, it's because we haven't canceled.
Yeah.
It works great unless you cancel. But then if you cancel, I guess it's kind of up to the operator how they want to handle cancellations. Fortunately, the guy in Barcelona, I guess he kind of just took whatever the default was. And I think I was only out a couple $100 for the whole Barcelona trip. But the one we had in Seattle, yeah, $1,600 flushed.
Well, for Barcelona, I was flying from Barcelona to Lisbon.
Yep, I was on that with you.
And then on to, I don't know, Newark, I think it was, and then into Seattle. But of course, all that's gone. I haven't been able to get my funds back on those flights as well. So, yeah.
No, it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. So, it's funny because frequently by the end of these episodes, these shows, I'm asking you, what's your upcoming travel plans? And right now I'd say zip,
man. I'm just working on my property.
Yeah, right. Out there digging holes and doing whatever you need to do, right?
You check this. This is the stuff that arrived this week for me. So this is me, because I was brought up. Oh, hang on. Where's my focus gone? Come back, focus. There we go. Because I was brought up on a farm, right? So here's me building my entire own water system, having to glue all this stuff together. But on the weekend, I'll have water at my property because I would have built it all.
Nice. You got a well, or is it connection?
I know, rain harvesting.
Rain harvesting.
Yeah.
Are you one of those?
It's got no choice. There's no towns. There's no, it's too far remote to have anything coming from a city.
And they can't drill wells over there like they do here?
You can, but to drill a well, you are then tied into, like, for example, they just put a restriction on anybody using their wells because of the drought.
Yeah, the same aquifer.
Yeah. Yep. So therefore, there's a lot more restrictions on drilling wells. As if you rain harvest, and I'm gonna have tanks for around 60,000 liters. Don't know what that is in gallons.
Yeah.
Is that 12,000 gallons maybe? So theoretically, I've got to store all my water on site because there's no other alternative.
You still got to filter the rainwater and stuff too, right?
So yeah, I've got it goes through a big filter. It goes through multiple, actually. I've got 2 different type filter intakes, and then I even might put a third one on for the drinking, which will have UV filtration, which takes out all bacteria and stuff as well.
Yeah, because I would imagine, water falling from the sky goes through a lot before it's going to get to your barrel.
Right? Yeah, a lot of smokes and shit.
Yeah.
Although I'm way out in the middle of nowhere next to the ocean, so just farmland for miles around.
Acid rain or something.
Yeah, not much chance of having that. So
yeah.
So
all right, so we're gonna have to come up with some stuff to talk about next episode. Definitely. So I'll actually be leaving. I was going to leave on Tuesday, but I moved it to Wednesday next week to go to the wedding. So I'll be here for next week's show.
Yeah, great.
And maybe I'm gonna try and drive these folks for some answers on multiplexing and on the restricted entities. I mean,
let's see if we can get that. Been
too long coming.
there's nothing else you want to cover, we might wrap it up.
Yeah, will this be the first episode we actually ended early?
It's the first ever we've ended early.
Well, it's because we started an hour late here in the US. So
yeah, let's blame the virus for that.
Definitely, the virus is causing our episode to come to an end. All right, guys, it's been great. It's been fun. We will chat again next week. Tell all your friends we're pretty close to hitting a threshold on followers on the YouTube that we'd love to hit. So, tell your friends, family, definitely family.
Yeah, subscribe. And if you're watching this in playback, add comments because we do pick up on all those comments. You can add there. It's not the live stream comments, it's the normal commenting part that is available on playback. If you subscribe, we'll notify, as in you just get an email. You get an email only if you hit the bell. And what it'll tell you is when that event's due to go live. So we know daylight saving is all up in the air around different countries. Time zones are changing, so it's going to be up in the air for the next 4 weeks. So I've actually put up right through to the 31st of this month all the sessions based on the times as we have it, which is based on New Zealand time at the moment, but I know our times change shortly as well. So we'll try and get that sweet spot back again, the best time to go live to air. But thanks, everybody.
Sounds good. Bye.